Hello everybody, welcome back to It's Current Year for another quick battle ladder replay. Today on Alpine Ridge, I'm taking the Beastmen and I'm up against CP330 of the ITO clan, who is playing the Norscans. So I'll pop it on pause because this one gets underway pretty quickly. As you can see here, both forces are vanguarding a fair amount of stuff. So Norscan force, Marauders in the front, as you'd expect to see, a couple of Berserkers behind. So Marauder infantry and Berserker infantry does trade really atrociously with Beastmen infantry, but they do chop through it very quick, particularly with their enrage mechanic. So we'll see what I've taken in a sec, but I did with my own force want to counterplay that a little bit. So 3 units of Skinwolves, another great unit against the Beastmen because the lack of armor piercing that they have is not as much of a factor. We'll come back to the characters because over here we've got a pretty big Vanguard force. So 2 units of Norscan Warhounds, we have a unit of Marauder Horsemasters, and then 3 units of just regular Marauder Horsemen here up on the hill. So similar idea to me. You wanted to get some eyes on me, and we've deployed right on top of one another. So for characters, we've got a Shaman Sorcerer of Fire on a horsey here. He's taking Fireball and Burning Head, and we have Wulfric up on his Mammoth leading the force, as we see that big rock and roll Mammoth here sitting up on his chair. So he's taken Sea Fang, Fight or Die, and it looks like Hunter of Champions. So no Sword of Torgold. Not really necessary on the Mammoth when you're doing what, 525 weapon damage. So Hunter of Champions obviously to pin things in place, and Sea Fang can do some nice damage in the infantry fight and with even with cavalry. So for my little Vanguard force, I've got 2 units of Centaurs up on the hill here, as well as some Harpies. And obviously this is mirrored on the other side, so Harpies and Centaurs once more. Harpies are, I find, really quite a nasty unit because 38 melee defense is reasonably good. They are infantry size, so they can get on some certain things with anti-large to cut them up. 44 weapon strength is actually a lot of people don't realize how much weapon strength they have. They obviously don't have fantastic melee attack stats, but given they can fly and can get where they need to be, they're really good at shredding through lightly armored skirmishers, skirmish cav if they can catch them, that kind of thing. Got to be a bit careful because obviously no armor, poor leadership, and not a ton of HP. But yeah, a very handy unit, very underrated unit in terms of its actual damage dealing potential on the right target. So my infantry, just 3 units of Ungor Spear up the front, pretty cheap. Got some chevrons into them, but my main sort of core here is 4 units of Bestigors. Not always seen as the greatest pick in this matchup, but just wanted to try a little bit of armor and a little bit of punching power of my own in this in this sort of frontline fight. I could go obviously a lot wider with gauze and that kind of thing, but I just wanted to see if these guys could stand up to Berserkers and then maybe be a little bit more impactful in the later portions of the game. Also the extra armor with Burning Head. I figured Law of Fire would be what I'd see, so we'll see how they go. We'll put them to the test here. 3 units of Ungor Raiders. Love Ungor Raiders because they have high unit models and their damage over time just really adds up. And obviously with things like Mammoths on the Norscan roster with massive hitboxes, if you can keep them safe and keep them shooting, they are real sleeping giants in these kind of matchups against monster factions. So for our leaders, we've got a Bray Shaman of Wild. He's just taken Voltide and Bray Scream for the cheap way to sort of proc the Bestial Surge lore attribute. He's also taken the Jagged Dagger, and alongside him we just have a regular vanilla Beast Lord with his 2 sort of AoE buffs, the Apocalyptic Vision and Horn of the First Beast. You can basically cycle these. You don't really need to pop them twice because there's a bit of diminished returns on obviously the melee attack and the extra leadership when you pop them both at the same time. But if you cycle them, you can keep your troops stats pretty juiced and keep them pretty courageous in the front line. So obviously, like we said, it's going to get underway quickly here, and I see this. Luckily, I have this part of my force actually selected, and I can pull back very quick. I figure I might be able to take a few units with me here if I stand and fight, but I'm going to need these guys to actually keep the Ungors safe, to pull these guys out of position and then try and get some maybe rear charges and that kind of thing. We do manage to get a charge here on these Norscan Warhounds, and we will probably break them off. Likewise here, the Warhounds here are going to die to Harpies and Centaurs. Bit of a mistake by my opponent here. I would have actually just committed these guys to combat and tried to just break these Centaurs off. He probably sees the spears coming off, and knowing that the anti-large here might be a bit of a threat, but we do manage to actually pick off both these units of Warhounds. I'm going to put these Harpies onto these Horsemen now, just to basically screen them out and see if we can't maybe waste some of their ammo. Flying units like that don't actually take a lot of hits from skirmish cabs. So likewise, pushing around the flanks here, just getting active with these Centaurs. We do sort of get to the top of the hill first as well, which is nice, and I am sort of trying to work out a position here where I can sort of get the good downhill charge and some favourable engagements as the Harpies do sort of make their way over. And you see here they're taking a little bit of damage, so it's a little bit sloppy from me. We've kept these Centaurs on the unit of Warhounds that they broke off, but the Skinwolves here, these ones getting very, very ballsy, and that's not really a cost-effective fight, so we're happy to take that with Ungor Spearmen getting maybe some damage into Skinwolves, but need to keep these guys on the move, get up around the flanks, pull the Skinwolves away, pull the Marauder Horsemen away, and as we see here, we've got a nice downhill charge, and the infantry fight's going to go well for me. So Burning Head going down the line there, and you see just not great deal of damage. Actually stood up to that reasonably well. We're getting some rear charges in on the Berserkers with our Centaurs. The boat comes through these Ungors, and he does manage to break off this unit of Ungors here, but as these two turn to face now, he can't shut them all down at once, and look at that, there's some pretty decent damage going into Wulfric. So we'll see what happens here with Wulfric, whether he can push through and tear out these guys off, but the Bestigors here have made pretty quick work of the Marauders, as you'd expect them to. The Horsemasters and the Horsemen have come back into the fight, but now the Harpies have landed and the Centaurs have come back in. Centaurs versus Skinwolves here is not a great fight for the Centaurs. Need to probably, and you see I realise that here, and I do pull them out. Unfortunately these guys do get broken off. Need to get these guys sort of spread out a little bit more, but again, we're just pushing them back. They're using a bit of their ammunition. We do have a little shield block chance here, and the obviously Spearmen now can be used to either screen here or get a bit of a reasonably cost-effective trade against Skinwolves. So the Bestigors pushing back, go get a little bit of chip damage, but again, just the amount of firepower. Look how much damage has gone into Wulfric. He's down to half health, obviously still a decent amount of health left, but the buffs have gone down here. We've actually used them both at the same time, so counteracting what I said at the start here, but both have been popped up. Good leadership he's holding there, obviously fantastic stats, 88. They need to get busy while that's active. The Skinwolves are coming here, but again, cheap spears are doing their job. Skinwolves do not really want to be fighting cheap Ungor spears. The Ungors, apart from this one here, and this one obviously coming in for a bit of damage now, these ones, guys, are pretty much untouched. They've burnt through a good amount of their ammunition. Wulfric's sub 4k hit points. These guys are back online. We've got some Bestigors that are still, these ones are pretty tattered, and we've got another unit in here somewhere that's copped a little bit of damage, but even with the Burning Head going down there, these Skinwolves just are well and truly outnumbered. Wulfric's coming back in now. Our leadership's nice and high because our Beast Lord's healthy. We're getting encouraged by that as we see a nice Sea Fang come through here, and we're still just harassing the Marauder Horsemen here. Spears pushing them back, Harpies keeping them busy. Needs to try and probably commit these guys to combat and just try and get these guys off with a cycle charge. So purposely leaving some Bestigors out here because we don't really need to commit everything. Ungor's still shooting. The lack of armor on Skinwolves means they're going to take more damage than they really want to from the Ungors. They're going to start pulling back, and the Bestigors can now be shifted over to here. These guys are trying to relieve Wulfric, but there's just not enough left at the moment. I don't know if that was spotted by my opponent, or but that might have been nicely timed there had they kept moving. But Wulfric now, 550 HP. The Marauders, too little too late at this stage. The Centaurs are going to come in and get a rear charge, and just the amount of Ungors left are going to hold them in reasonably good stead. That's a nice Burning Head, probably getting some nice value there on the Shaman Sorcerer, but just, Wulfric's torn to shreds. The Horsemen have really only just found the prey that they really want to get in now, the soft sort of underbelly of the force here in the Ungor Raiders, and our Bestigor, death blob here with the Beast Lord is pretty healthy and will take the win. So a fairly meta Norscan list, you'd have to say. Lots of mobile threats in the Horsemen. Skinwolves, great in this matchup. Hasn't gone that wide on the front line, but we see here that's actually, well, maybe the armor was even more pertinent than we thought, because I would have thought he would have got a lot more than 1,000 damage there, because he did get, I think, 3 burning heads off over the course of that game. So maybe that, probably vindicating part of the reason why I took these guys, to be honest. With 95 armor, burning head's not quite as effective. Won't kill models as quick, won't strip HP, and then cause leadership debuffing, which Wulfric can take advantage of as a Terror Causer. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how the list stood up. Great value on the Ungors. They've all pretty much got their value. Well, between the 3 of them, they've definitely got their value back. 800, 1300, 500, and 1100. You'll take that on these guys, particularly given how healthy a couple of these units are. But look at the Ungor Raiders, 600. I think this is the one that got shafted by Wulfric pretty early, but 1200 damage value on a unit of Ungor Raiders. I mean, they've pretty much those 2 units have put a ton of work into Wulfric. I think just about all their ammunition was spent killing Wulfric. Centaur's not a ton of value, but they've all done what they needed to do. They've harassed the mobile threats here. They've pulled the skin wolves out of position, so the infantry fight could be just completely one-sided in our favor. And even even the Beast Lord and the Shaman themselves, not a ton of value, but we've spammed those spells, kept our vigor and our charge bonus buffed through the lore attribute. He's used his obviously Horn of the Wild Hunt and Apocalyptic Vision just to make the the stats of the front line here even more sourced up. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how the list went. We were fortunate, obviously, that we got we got not a very wide front line. Not a lot of armor piercing here. Berserkers actually have a bit more than what some people think, but if this had been a Shadowcaster with Pendulum, probably would have done a little bit better than the Burning Heads. Could have been a bit of an issue. Likewise, Melkoths to wear down our Centaurs and debuff their speed so that the Skin Wolves could gang up on them. The Marauder Horsemen could gang up on them. Could have been a little bit more impactful. So Burning Head probably, Law of Fire there probably wasn't as big of a threat as it sometimes can be to the Beastmen. But I think my opponent probably just needed to be a little bit more bold with his Skirmish Cav. They can fight reasonably well in combat. Well, Marauder Horsemasters can fight very well in combat. They've got good charge bonus, reasonably good stats, and can be used as cycle charges in the late game. But we saw in the early game there, the Centaurs managed to deal with the 2 units of Warhounds pretty quickly, whilst the other ones sat out and shot. They actually probably could have killed those 2 units of Centaurs at the start of the battle there. Then they sort of just were led on a bit of a wild goose chase when they could have gone back and again been committed to combat with the Ungor Raiders. We didn't have actually a lot back there protecting them, in close proximity to them, because the most of the mobility game was played in the Norscan backline. But yeah, these guys were the real sort of underrated stars of this game, to be honest. The Ungor Archers and actually the Bestigors. So yeah, cool. Bit of a different list. Not sure if Bestigors are always going to be the greatest pick here, but they certainly did their job today. So thanks to CP330 for the game, and thank you to all you guys for checking it out. And we'll be back soon with more. Take care.